Hello. This video will provide an overview of the Technology Innovation and Emission Reduction Benchmark Application Form as applied to large emitter or opt-in facilities with a single end product. The Benchmark Application Form is an Excel book with multiple tabs. Its purpose is to collect historic, facility-specific information on greenhouse gas emissions and production that will help in setting the facility-specific benchmark for the facility. We will take the next few minutes to do a brief walkthrough of each of the tabs from left to right. If your workbook opens in protected mode, please go to the File Info menu to turn off protected mode. Please also enable macros for this workbook. We will start at the Submission tab. For this use case, please select Facility Specific Benchmark Single Product Facility from the dropdown. As applicable, you may also check boxes for self-generation of electricity or cogeneration, Alberta CWB product, Alberta Gas Processing Index product. We will provide an overview of these cases at the end of the video. If you have self-generation or cogeneration of electricity on site, please contact the department to receive additional guidance at aep.ghg@gov.ab.ca. Under the reporting period heading, select the number of years your benchmark application will cover, and you will list them in these fields from least recent to most recent. In this case, we will indicate a 3-year period covering 2017 to 2019. If you believe information that you are supplying on the application form meets the threshold to be considered confidential under Section 28 of the regulation, please indicate yes under the drop-down menu for confidentiality, and supply a letter with your submission detailing which information meets that threshold and how it qualifies. Information is also supplied in this tab about the documents which should be accompany your application, as well as an explanation that the emissions reported on this form should be the emissions that are associated with the production of the product being applied for. For facilities which produce only a single product, all emissions should be reported. The next tab is called Section A1. Generally, Section A tabs collect administrative information. A1 contains information about the facility, including the facility name and various identifiers that may apply to the facility. Please note that fields with the red notification tag have an associated comment. Hover your mouse over the field to see the additional instruction provided there. Please also supply the first year of commercial operation for the facility. This is the first calendar year following the year in which the facility first produced a product. The next tab, called Section A2, contains fields to provide information on the reporting company in this top area, and the roles of reporter, who completes and typically submits the form, and certifying official, who is signing off on the contents of the form, and also information on the public contact for the facility. The following tab, called Section A3, is a free-form text field in which you can describe any significant changes that have occurred to the facility since prior reporting under previous Alberta regulations. The next tab, Section A4, is provided for a case where the facility has chosen to have an external consultant complete the benchmark application. Following that, Section A5 gives space to provide information on facility ownership in cases where the facility has multiple owners. We now move into the B sections of the form, where emissions and production data are reported. In Section B1, the majority of emissions will be reported for the first year of your benchmark period. Report the quantities of carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide in tons by source category. The form will calculate the carbon dioxide equivalents if in the benchmarking period you had significant fuel use where you would have paid the federal fuel charge in 2020 or onwards. Please contact the department. Examples could include work on site by contractors, vehicle use on site, or the use of fuel in vehicles that are used both on site and off site. Moving to section B2, this sheet is for reporting of emissions from hydrofluorocarbons which occur on site. Report tons of each gas type as applicable. Section B3 is for reporting perfluorocarbon, NF3 and SF6 emissions. It also includes roll-up of emissions from the last two sheets. Moving to section B4, this section includes some reporting which may not be present at some facilities. This includes reporting of carbon dioxide emissions from the combustion or decomposition of biomass at the top of the page. Reporting of carbon dioxide that is geologically injected on site within the boundary of the facility. Carbon dioxide which leaves the facility, for example in a pipeline or by truck, not including CO2 exported for disposal as acid gas, which is reported separately here. Carbon dioxide that is brought on site from another regulated facility. Is also reported here, less any that is imported for the purpose of disposal of acid gas, which is reported in its own field. The section below collects information on electricity, heat, and hydrogen. For electricity and heat, quantities imported and exported from the facility are reported. For hydrogen, in addition to quantities imported and exported, quantities generated, used, vented, or burnt are reported to create a complete balance. The final field of this sheet is for CO2 consumed in production of urea. Section B5 asks you to list emission sources that you are treating as negligible. Emissions from these sources still need to be listed, but alternative methods of quantification can be used. These are typically small, difficult to accurately quantify sources. See the embedded comment for details on treatment about the cumulative emissions limit for negligible facilities. And again, these emission sources do need to be included in your total regulated emissions. The bottom section of this sheet asks if emissions data for this facility is publicly available. And also whether it's available by gas type or by total. Section B7 is next. Section B6 is not required for this application, so it's not included here. B7 summarizes the data that has been supplied on site emissions. No entry is required on this sheet as it's calculated quantities entered in previous sheets. Section B8 is for reporting of fuels used by the facility either for feedstock or for purposes of producing energy. Please report whether the quantity is fuel or feedstock, the type of the fuel, a description, and quantity in the units specified. Section B1 through B8 are repeated for each benchmark year requested. As you can see here, there's a repeat number 2, as well as number 3, since we indicated 3 years of benchmarking. Section E, the required entry in Section E is the quantity of production for each production year, for each benchmark year rather. Once this is entered, your benchmark for 2020 will be calculated. It is shown in 2 parts, one which is subject to a reduction target and subsequent tightening, and another part that is fixed or non-tightening. The 2 parts are added to provide the overall benchmark. Section F is a text entry where you can place any comments that are useful in the department understanding your application. Moving to Section G, this section is to provide details about your third-party assurance provider, including who the signing authority is, contact information for the firm, and how they are qualified under the regulation. Section H should be filled out to give contact for the various individuals filling the roles within the verification team. The next tab is the conflict of interest checklist. This should be filled out by the verifier and confirms if any of the listed questions are true for the engagement. If so, the verifier should contact the department. A signed copy of this sheet should be included as part of the verification report. The statement of qualifications should be filled out by both the designated signing authority and the lead verifier of the third-party assurance provider, where these are different individuals. It attests to the qualifications of the lead verifier and third-party assurance provider, and a signed copy should be included in the verification report. The statement of verification, SOV, is to be completed by the third-party assurance provider and signed by both the lead verifier and designated signing authority. The signed copy should be included as part of the third-party verification report. The next tab, called the SOC, or the Statement of Certification, is the last tab of the book and should be signed electronically within Excel. To do this, the certifying official will need to set up a certificate. This can be done at no cost through Windows. Double-click on the X within the signature block once you have a certificate. A dialog will appear. You may either sign within the box or select an image of your signature. You may also add text under the purpose, if you wish. You may also indicate that you are approving the document under the commitment type drop-down, though this is not a requirement. The bottom part of the dialog box shows who you are assigning the document as. This should match the indicated certifying official in the form. Further edits to the compliance report will clear the signature. I will now return to the Submission tab to provide a brief overview of the checkboxes under the report type. Working from bottom to top, selecting the AB GPI product button indicates that the facility is a gas plant requesting a benchmark for the Alberta Gas Processing Index product. An additional tab will appear for each benchmarking year called Section 6 AB GPI. Moving to this tab, you can see this is where individual throughput quantities can be provided for each process covered by the Alberta Gas Processing Index. You will also see that the production entry in Section E has been replaced with a reference to that sheet. Let us look there. Here in this area. Returning to the Submission tab, deselecting AB GPI and selecting Alberta Complexity Weighted Barrel. This indicates the facility is requesting a benchmark for either a refining or upgrading product with units of Alberta Complexity Weighted Barrel. This selection will primarily change the way that hydrogen reported under B4 is used in the benchmark calculation. Finally, selecting self-generation of electricity and or cogeneration will introduce tab called Section B4EE. In this tab, please report emissions from self-generation and or cogeneration. These emissions should still be reported in your total regulated emissions under Section B1. Also, report the amount of electricity self-generated net of any station loads that serve that generation. If you have on-site cogeneration, please also report the net heat produced through cogeneration. These quantities will be used to adjust the facility benchmark. These adjustments can be observed in Section E. As mentioned, if you have on-site cogeneration or on-site generation which isn't cogeneration, please consult the department for additional guidance. This ends our overview of the use of the form for facilities with a single product. If you have a facility that produces multiple products, please consult that video. And if you have questions remaining, please send an email to aep.ghg@gov.ab.ca. And that address is listed here. Thank you very much for your time.